This is Zach. This is Zach. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Zach.
Good.
Hey guys, this is Bill. I'm here too.
All right, you guys, thank you for joining us.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody else, for joining us here in person. I'll call to order at 6:30 or 5:35. Our February 17th meeting of the Hood River Planning Commission. My name is Bonifacio Romero, and I am presiding as the Planning Commission Chair. Let me begin with a description of tonight's process and a few disclosures. First, the function of the Planning Commission is to review the record for this application, take testimony, and determine whether the application meets or does not meet the approval criteria in the Hood River Development Code. Second, we are required to render an impartial decision on each application. This means that we cannot have a personal financial stake or bias that would prevent us from making an impartial decision. Before we begin, I will call for the disclosure of bias, ex parte contact, and conflict of interest from each commissioner. Anyone in the audience will then have the opportunity to question any of us about those disclosures. Do we have any today?
No bias.
No bias.
No bias, ex parte, or conflict of interest.
And I have none as well.
I also have none. Our decision on the planned unit development will be final unless appealed to the City Council. To appeal our decision, you must participate either orally or in writing before the record closes on the item you are interested in and raise any issues you would like to preserve for appeal. Once we close the record for an item, that will end your ability to raise new issues or present evidence. So I'll describe the order of events for the hearing on tonight's agenda. First, we'll hear the staff report. Next, we'll hear from the applicant. Then we'll take public testimony. Finally, we will hear from the applicant's final rebuttal and remarks. After everyone has had a chance to testify, we will close the record, deliberate, and may render the decision tonight. Our decision, however, is not final until it is reduced to writing and officially issued, except for the zone change request, which will require City Council approval. Planning Commission decisions are final unless appealed to City Council. Here are some of the basic rules for presenting testimony in tonight's hearing. Only present testimony when called upon. Do so only at the podium. Begin with your name and mailing address. Please limit your testimony to the applicable approval criteria. If you believe that other or different criteria apply, please identify those and explain why you think they apply. That is by way of a procedural introduction for tonight's hearing. If anyone has any questions about the process as we go forward, feel free to ask them during the public testimony portion of the hearing. Does anybody have any questions about the hearing procedures? Okay. No one online? No. All right. Well, we will now consider file number 2025-32, an application by Ben Dow requesting approval of a conditional use request for a planned unit development consisting of 11 dwelling units and an 11-lot subdivision in association with a request for a zone change from the industrial to general commercial zone. A quorum of the Planning Commission is present, and I will now ask all commissioners to disclose. Oh, we already did that part. Okay, so there was none.
We were ready to give you the staff
Right,
report.
so we have the staff for their report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Before you tonight is file number 2025-32, the Wasco Street Townhomes Project. The applicant, Ben Dow, is requesting a zone change from the industrial to general commercial zone in association with a planned unit development consisting of 11 townhouses on an 11-lot subdivision. The property is located at 1225 Wasco Street, totaling approximately 0.34 acres, and is currently developed with an industrial building. Surrounding uses include industrial to the north and east, and residential zoning and single-family homes to the south and west. Under the Hood River Municipal Code, residential development is allowed in the C2 zone through planned unit development process, through a conditional use process, provided minimum density standards are met. In this case, the minimum density requirement is approximately 4 units, and what they are proposing is 11, which exceeds that criteria. Proposal includes 11 townhouse units, private internal access with a shared driveway off of Wasco Street beneath the shared common deck. 2 internal and enclosed garage spaces are provided for each unit for a total of 22 spaces. And frontage improvements along both Wasco Street and 13th Street are shown, along with new sidewalks, landscaping, ADA improvements, and utility infrastructure. A traffic assessment letter was submitted and reviewed by City Engineering and ODOT. The analysis shows a net decrease in peak hour trips compared to the existing use. All agency comments have been addressed through recommended conditions of approval in the staff report. The proposed buildings range from approximately 22 to 30 feet in height, which is compliant with the 35-foot height requirement limit for residential development in the C2 zone. Required setbacks are met, including increased setbacks adjacent to the residential zoning to the south. Public notice was provided to property owners within 250 feet, and comments were received last week after the publication that had been forwarded to you all prior to this meeting. These primarily discuss the potential impact of the development on available street parking, neighborhood compatibility, scale of the development, impacted views, traffic safety concerns along Wasco and 13th Street. Staff finds the proposal is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, along with the housing needs analysis, which identifies a need for higher density housing and attached housing types, including residential development in commercial zones. There are findings within the staff report that address the Hood River Economic Opportunities Analysis related to Goal 9, which is economic development, which finds the proposed zone change from industrial to commercial for residential use would not adversely affect the city's ability to meet the industrial land requirements and is consistent with statewide planning goals and the local comprehensive plan. These findings can be found on page 40 of your staff report. Staff analysis finds that the application meets applicable criteria, and as such, we are recommending approval of the zone change and planned unit development subject to the conditions of approval outlined on page 96 of your packet. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, if you had any questions right now, we'd take any quick questions. Next up would be the applicant. There'll be another opportunity once you hear their presentation to ask more questions prior to your deliberation.
You guys have any questions regarding the staff report?
We have anyone online with their hand up? Perfect.
Bill and Zach, you guys are good over there?
Well, one thing that I wanted to understand, it wasn't clear, maybe it can get addressed, was the requirement for I think it was the open space or outdoor area, and there was a number specified per unit, and I couldn't tell from the diagrams if that was planned to be in the driving lanes or if it was elevated above it. So
That
I guess
portion-
the applicant could address that one.
Oh, okay.
Or staff. But that was one of the questions that I wanted to glean.
Okay, we'll wait for the applicant on that one.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Great, thank you guys. So yeah, we'll go ahead with the applicant.
Good afternoon, Commission. I am Hayden Wooten with Mario Design. I am the Senior Land Use Planner on the team. I am representing the applicant tonight. To start, I would like to thank staff for all of their help throughout the course of this application. We've been bouncing questions off them for the last handful of months. They've been incredibly responsive and helpful as we kind of work through some of the more complicated elements of this project. We've had a chance to look through both the staff report and the conditions of approval. We have no issues with the findings as presented in the report and are willing to proceed under the conditions of approval as written. The staff report was pretty thorough and covered just about everything I was intending on presenting tonight. So I'll keep this limited to a few key points I'd like to reiterate, and then kind of open a few things up for questions. To start with the zone change, presently, there's not an identified need for industrial sites of this size. And so as the applicant, we went to look for a more appropriate use that is more in line with the statewide planning goals and the planning goals of Hood River. And we found that to be a residential use and proposal. And then under that kind of review of those documents, the economic opportunities analysis, the housing needs analysis, we found that the C2 zone was pretty advantageous for us, primarily because Hood River is already accounted for certain residential zones that are available, but there was an identified need for commercial land with the intention that it be developed as residential to help meet the housing needs. And so we looked at that route through our housing needs analysis as a reasonable way to get residential units on this property. Additionally, the benefit of a commercial zone in this location is to provide a smooth transition from nearby industrial properties to residential properties, which are not always considered compatible. And so the benefit of having kind of that commercial zone on this corner property is to provide a little bit more of a transition. And so we go from what is considered a more intense use in industrial to a slightly less intense use, higher density residential, and then moving to lower density residential as we move north to south there. And so we found that that was an appropriate zone change. It's also typically, when we look at some of these things, a little bit more of an easier ask. That sometimes an industrial use to a residential zone can be a big ask for certain jurisdictions. And so providing that smooth transition is frequently something that we have learned cities like to see. That when you start accounting for what could happen in the future, when you just simply look at that map, that transition is held intact. And so that was kind of some of our reasoning behind the zone change there. Moving to the subdivision, the development itself, Jacob covered it pretty thoroughly. It's 11 units on 11 lots. Vehicle access will be provided via a private drive to Wasco. Pedestrian access, and I hope this might answer one of those questions, is actually going to be provided from 13th Street. There's a fair bit of elevation change between those two streets. And so a creative way we found to kind of accommodate that within the design is to orient the pedestrian access, the pedestrian uses towards the lower classification street and 13th, and then vehicles from the more traffic street. Now that might sound counterintuitive, but ultimately what that provides us is better spacing from the intersection for that driveway. So we provide safer sight distances. So what's going to end up occurring is all of these vehicles will access on the ground. They'll have ground level garages, and then there's a boardwalk, and that's that shared pedestrian space. The shared open space is going to be in a form of a communal boardwalk that provides access to the living quarters, to kind of the more trafficked rooms in these homes. And then that will route out to 13th. And so that was kind of some of the theory then behind our strategy in approaching some of that elevation change we found within the streets already. And then just to reiterate, we are going to be improving both street frontages. And so our hope is that that will help provide some safer on-street parking and safer pedestrian amenities there on the frontage. And so with that, I open up to any questions.
Yes, did you look at R3 for that zone change? And if you did or didn't, why?
So we considered R3, but it was one of those that kind of got eliminated as we started getting into the weeds of this project and started looking at what suited the development best and what suited the area best. Ultimately, looking through the housing needs analysis, saw that Hood River had already accounted for development of that zone and the amount of land they already had zoned in R3. And so the housing needs analysis kind of guided us away from that zone and pointed us more towards the commercial zone, which was intended to serve a variety of uses and a variety of development patterns. And so ultimately we found that when we start looking at what our decision criteria are and how we justify that, and going back to those kind of goal 9 and goal 10 reviews, C2 was a lot easier justification in code than R3.
I'm not sure what you mean by that, but do you know if you would be able to put as many dwellings on an R3 as you could on C1
Mhm.
commercial?
It would be a different number of dwellings.
Do you know the numbers by any chance?
I'll lean over to another one of my team members here.
8? So you'd lose 3 dwellings in
We would
R3.
lose 3 dwellings, which would decrease our ability to comply with goal 10.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Now in the housing needs analysis, I actually am a developer and I tried to get that land and the land across the street from it zoned from industrial to R3 years ago. And the city said, we don't do that. We want to keep our industrial land. They've changed since then. I realize that. I read that since 2015, they changed that. And I think this is a good transition point to be able to do it. My concern is the housing need analysis and every housing strategy comment encourages high density in a spot like this, but it's all in the context of affordable housing. That's what they're trying. That's why they want that high density, and that's why they want those zone changes. So my concern is that, are you trying to make this affordable housing, or are you trying to make it like a hotel because it's commercial? I mean, what do you have any? Is it for sale? Are they for rent? What's the ultimate goal here? Is that even my business?
The applicant's intention is to sell these units as individual units. To my knowledge, there's no intention to rent them, to condo them, anything along those lines. Now we lose obviously control of what happens after that sale. And so then we start getting into realms and questions I can't answer as the applicant.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's just a concern of all, is what the end use, and they're probably not going to be affordable, but I mean, that's, to me, it's it's a proper use of that lot. I don't see taking down a commercial building that's already there, and they've probably got 20 or 24 employees in it already. So it seems a little odd, but it's not my project.
And we can understand that concern. And speaking from the applicant side, while we do have some control over cost, that's ultimately not something we can really get into the weeds of in this forum. And so at this point, our view is that for sale lots and units and just increasing supply, trying to provide those higher densities, those smaller units are another way of kind of reaching that ultimate goal.
So these are for sale. That's what you're saying. Okay. And nobody can hold you to that. I mean, somebody could turn those into a 11-unit rental development if they wanted to, because of the zoning. But that's your intention is to sell them at as a reasonable price as you can.
Yes, and that's then ultimately after that exchange happens, we're no longer involved, and that becomes a different conversation.
Okay.
I think just like as it relates to the housing needs analysis, leveraging commercial zoning for housing, I believe that was in the context of existing commercial zone, really as a way to augment the stock of our zoned, land that we had. So I'm not quite sure that I buy the argument of we're going to rezone this to C2 in order to get what the housing needs analysis said that we needed. It was really more use your existing C2 stock to augment. The housing needs analysis also indicated that we do have enough R2 and R3 zone for needed housing, as far as I read it, unless that's changed in current years or that calculation has changed. So it does indicate that did indicate that we do have enough R2, R3 and commercially zoned property for housing. So they just wanted to put that statement out there because I think it is relevant. I mean, if you look at this on the zoning map, it's 1,000 feet away from the closest commercial zone lot. So how do we consider that from keeping a clean and consistent zoning framework? Maybe that's a question for staff, I think, or for my fellow commissioners more than anyone. Is this something that we we do? Is this something we want to do? Do we want to have a practice of, is this the first of potentially many, rezones on that kind of fringe of, industrial to, residential? Or is this gonna be an island?
Well, I think, to your point, the housing needs analysis of 2015 indicates a deficiency in R3 and basically says you will need to rely on your C2 zoning to satisfy a multifamily need. So that's really the context. The other big, I would consider kind of the hallmark that we look at is the industrial needs analysis or the economic opportunities analysis, which is our goal 9 analysis, which showed, in this instance, industrial sites of this size, we have a surplus of. So what we do as staff and ultimately what city council and does is, and you all, is a balancing test. If we have a surplus of property, are we justified to zone change or change that zone from to something else, which is a need? So I don't think it's necessarily just because it wasn't in a C2 inventory before does not make it all of a sudden excluded from the calculus here. So I think that provides an opportunity to say, well, we can move the needle on goal 10 this is a stat. We can move the needle on goal 10 for something that provides a housing needed or a needed housing, so long as it doesn't create a deficiency or adversely impact goal 9. So those are kind of our balancing. The world moves at time, the snapshot in 2015 is there. I don't think it necessarily means any changes after all of a sudden off limit. So in terms of changes in the spot, I think, there's, we're going to look at each individually. This a collector street. Is it an interface between where the zone changes? It may allow some sort of transition there that may not be widely spread. When you look at pieces like this, I think there's not a whole lot of places where industrial all of a sudden is adjacent right to residential. We usually see a step down. So in terms of progressive down zoning, I don't think it necessarily shows as some anomaly. The industrial pieces that are next door to this are actually already, I would call them the backyard of a residential property owned by a certain house that is under construction right now. So the likelihood of that being all of a sudden an industrial piece of property it's unlikely that the people building that house are going to convert their rear yard into any industrial use. So that's some commentary and response for.
Hey, Dustin, it's Bill. Could you walk us through both the HNA and economic opportunities analysis and the deficit or surplus for each of our zones from that analysis?
I don't have the numbers right off the top.
I don't need a. You can just tell me whether there was a deficit or a surplus of each zone.
R3, there's a multifamily deficit. So it's not necessarily a deficit of R3 zoned property. It's really because R3, it's a multifamily issue. It's not a zone issue. So there's HNA says you will need to use some of your C2 zone to satisfy your multifamily need. It doesn't say you'll need a C2 to satisfy your R3 need. It's the use, it's not the underlying zone.
Right.
So that's the tension there.
And this is not a multifamily use that's being proposed, correct?
It's 11 units in one building divided into townhouses. So arguably, it's
single family attached.
Yeah, individual lots, technically on fee simple lots. It's not 5 units in one building, it's 11 units in 2 somewhat combined buildings. So technically it's a townhouse. If you look at the image itself, I think it pretty much represents a multifamily building by configuration, maybe not by definition, the way the city defines it.
If I may, I believe that intention, that idea that we are reaching for higher densities, for higher unit counts, helps justify our proposal for C2 because that zone is ultimately what allows us to achieve those unit counts and the desired, while not traditionally defined as multifamily, but more that level of density in a package that is still found nearby on Wasco, several other townhouse developments nearby. So we're still achieving higher densities as directed by those plans while maintaining a development style that is compatible with other recent developments in the area.
So continue on my request, Dustin. My understanding of the economic opportunity analysis was that we had a shortage of LI and we had a surplus of I. Is that correct?
No, I think it's for industrial sites of less than 1 acre. There's in 2019, even under the highest scenario industrial growth, there was a surplus of sites of this size.
And was that industrial and light industrial combined, or was that just industrial?
Let me go to the page, and I believe it is on page
Are you looking for the packet or what's in the economic opportunities analysis?
in the EOA or in the packet.
Are discussed on page 39 and then again on 40 and 42.
And in summary, is industrial
Yeah, it's industrial.
combined, Bill.
They're both industrial and light industrial, and they just did it by site size.
Yeah, it's site size. That's the big metric that we looked at. It's not industrial at large. It's industrial on sites less than an acre. There's a
Okay.
surplus shown.
Okay, thanks.
I think based on that and based on the location of this along kind of the fringe of the industrial and, surrounded by R2 and R3, it does make sense to me that this should be housing. I have no, I'm beyond that question personally. That seems to make sense. I think my question is, should it be R3 or should it be C2 or should it be C2? I guess is the question at hand.
It is, let me along this line, I guess, let me ask a question. Is there anything that would assure us that this is going to be developed as housing if we change this zone? So we agree to change the zone. The developer never does the project, the property gets sold, the next thing you know, we have a car wash.
Yeah, I think we had discussed in other applications, a condition of approval mandating that a certain amount of housing be produced and that be left on the zone. Therefore, not allowing rezone to occur, leaving a C2 that didn't produce. I think that would be something you would want to produce or discuss with the applicant in terms of, conditioning that although zoned to C2, you would, and any subsequent developer, if they walked away, would be required to produce a certain number of units. That's not unprecedented territory for a planning commission.
Is there anything that is going to currently, as defined in the findings, that would preclude these from just being short-term rentals?
No.
And that's not a condition that we could. Yeah.
Yeah, I share Bill's concerns too. That's what I wrote down where my concerns were, is somebody going to turn it into a 7-Eleven someday? I mean, literally that's a far-fetched possibility, but that's why I have a problem with C2. And you said that if someone else comes in and develops it, you can put something in the approval process that says it has to be some type of housing, and it can't be more than 11. But they really jammed him in there, which is fine. I've done that too.
Should we I guess we've zapped some questions, I think, at this point. I don't know if you have anything outstanding. We should maybe continue with the process if there's any people who want to.
Any further
Just
questions?
if there's anybody here at the hearing, does that make sense at this point?
Yeah, Commissioner, I parked a couple of your discussions. Will help queue those up for your deliberation later.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will now take testimony from the public, and we have a list here. Looks like Deborah Hendrickson. Go ahead and state your name and address, and the mic's hot.
Mike's hot. My name's Ron Hendrickson. I live at 1305 Wasco Street. I am 200 feet west of the proposed project. I purchased my home in 2012, realizing it was zoned R3. Everything to the east was pretty much zoned R2 or industrial, and knew that I lived on a truck route. So those were the parameters that I knew I was buying into. At this point, to me, if we allow an industrial site to change to a C2, which allows for very high density, I'm concerned that my neighbor across the street, which is 1302 Wasco, kitty corner to this project, would ask for the same thing, which I think, would, number one, the 2015 housing, housing needs analysis, excuse me, I don't know the correct term, but decrease the value of my property. I no longer could be a short-term rental. If this project goes from industrial to C2, again, that will decrease the value of my property with the high density residential close by. And I would worry again that it would happen, that it would go across the street from me at 1302 Wasco. I don't know if you guys have studied the drawings very well. I've tried. All we have is exterior elevations and a site plan. But there are no cross sections through the building looking north or south, through the project looking north or south, or through the project looking east and west, okay? And to me, just trying to figure it out, there's only 3 access points to get up to this so-called boardwalks, which basically to me are catwalks. So you're gonna either come in from 13th on the stairs, or you're gonna come in from Wasco on a set of stairs to walk up to this circular catwalk that walks around the whole thing. So all these people are gonna walk in front of all their neighbors to get to their doors, if I'm correct, and I don't know, because we haven't seen that. But to me, looking at the density going from an R2 or an R3 to basically 11 units, I think is excessive. And I would ask that we would be looking at R2 or R3 would be a reasonable zone change from industrial. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So that was Ron Hendrickson. Deborah, you said he was speaking for you. Okay, perfect. All right, so we got Jody McFarlane.
Since I didn't get signed up.
Yeah, here, come and sign up.
You can just state your name. You can say
Okay.
right down.
Linda Bailey. I'm an owner of Crush Starter Cafe. I also own a house on Wasco that's in R3. 4 spaces down from 13th going west. And I am concerned for 2 things. 1, 22 cars in a space on Wasco Street where it is considered a truck route. And the other thing is the amount of in and out and everything, because 13th Street is not very traffic induced. It's not a good street for a lot of traffic. There's no sidewalks. It's steep, it's icy. But my main concern is just because you have the parking on the lots for 2 cars, they're gonna have all their windsurfing boards, all their bicycles, they're gonna be parking on the street. So that's my main concern, okay? And I do say, I have an R3 lot and that I live on, and I think that's how it should keep it.
Thank you. Oh, I see. So there was Jody and David. Just David? No, okay. Steve Lambert?
Thank you for your time. Steve Lambert, I live at 1218 Lincoln Street, which is a tax lot 3100. So it's right adjacent to these units up above on Lincoln Street. Also next to the big house that you all know about on Lincoln Street, which has been pretty disruptive for our neighborhood. And it's going to be right up against the new property that they're building too, by the way, the park that they're building below. So it's going to be interesting for that. I mean, first of all, I don't fault the owners for trying to make as much money as they can on that lot, because obviously the more units on there, the more money they can make. They do look like they're going to have rooftop decks. So as far as affordable housing, I'm not sure about that, but they are going to be nice units looking from my seat. But I do think it's incompatible land use. They're trying to put as many units as they can in that small space, in my opinion. So you're turning into like spot zoning, which you mentioned. Is it spot zoning where there's R3 all around it, crosses industrial, so there's no C2 anywhere that I could see on that. And to Bill's point earlier, it could be turned into a 45-foot building, which obviously I have a lot of vested interest. Right out above it, I have a nice view right now, but I mean, I know that's not part of the equation. But I think that you know, there's some thought of down the road. I do think, you know, it doesn't really fit into the urban renewal that we're looking at doing to Bear Hood River. I know there's a lot of studies going on about urban renewal. I think it's also going to be some adverse impact to our adjacent neighborhoods. I mean, if Sam mentioned it, there's going to be a lot of noise associated with it. There'll be safety on that 13th and Wasco, which is, I think, a very dangerous street. And obviously a lot of obstructed views from the property above it, from multiple units on this street, on Lincoln Street, that obviously will affect all of our value of our houses. So it doesn't really seem consistent with our overall plan. And I do think it's disproportionate mass scale of what they're putting onto that same location. You know, just 11 units. If you have a chance, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that actual property. If you walk down the street, if you walk down Wasco, there's a lot of R3, a lot of 3 units. It's all kind of cohesive, but then if you see 11 units right there, then there's going to be that big unit, which has that big field below it. I guess it's going to be a very nice landscaping, I'm sure. So I just am concerned about parking. I'm concerned about the lights from that unit. That's going to be 11 units, going to throw a lot of lights, and of course the traffic. It seems like there's going to be a lot more traffic there too. So I also think that, you know, instead of C2, that they should look at R3 and have proper setbacks and just do it right. I know you want to have more housing, but they should just take a look at it and make sure they do it the right way. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have Steve Carlson?
My name is Steve Carlson. I live at 1524 Lincoln Street, which is half a block west of the proposed property. I've lived on Cascade, Columbia, Lincoln. I've been in the neighborhood since the late 90s. And anyway, a question I have about this, I don't have many questions about the project specifically, but the question for planning is, and per your question, Mr. Pope, and Mr. Kitts, you referenced your desire to rezone those parcels historically as well, right? And anyway, is this zone change precedent setting? Have we ever done such a thing before? Changed industrial into, how many zone changes have we done historically? Many?
We're gonna wait, we'll let them talk about it. You need to ask that.
Have we done many zone changes?
I don't have that information.
You need to ask planning for that.
I think for the sake of this hearing, fact finding, there's been a question raised that regarding the precedent setting aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I think we pause it there
Okay.
and allow Steve his time.
And that's fine. And regarding that precedent setting, were we to make this decision as a community, do we foresee more of such actions in the future? Are we likely to be converting other lands that historically have been forbidden from such development into something that will open that up? Is that, I don't know if anybody has any, I mean, that's more opinion than, you know.
Well, that's in the housing needs analysis. They're actually, they spell that out, that there's a need for that in several different spots. I've got them here printed out, actually.
Yeah,
They request that and they encourage it.
Good.
But again, they encourage it under the auspices of hopefully it would be affordable housing.
In
So-
the didn't somebody say in the utilization of like existing commercial for housing?
No, changing, they say that there's an overabundance of small industrial lots.
Okay,
That they
I'm unaware of this, great.
Yeah, that's from 2015 and it's even recent. I mean, I just checked on that recently and this is a good spot to do that. I mean,
In an
nobody's
ongoing
gonna-
initiative.
but
and-
I don't know if it's ever been done before. I can't answer that
okay,
question.
great.
So
And also,
that's a good question.
Probably for your making the decisions you guys did regarding the choice of development. Mr. Irving and Mr. Kitts both alluded to the concern about commercial zoning and the possibility for something such as a car wash or 7-Eleven, which are both extreme examples. But yes, if that zone land were to be rezoned and that development were not to proceed, that land would now have a different nature to it and have a potential for some things that we don't foresee currently. But my greatest concern as somebody who's been living in this neighborhood for a long time is that it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but commercially zoned properties with residences on them have unlimited short-term rental potential. Is that not the case?
We'll keep it to testimony and bringing up questions. But it's not,
Okay,
this
okay.
isn't the forum for back and forth.
Yeah. It's not a forum for questions, just.
Yeah,
commentary.
we'll
Okay.
we'll
So a
take your
concern I have-
testimony and deliberate.
Okay, the concern I have
but yeah.
is the potential for there to be unlimited short-term rentals. And there was a period, I haven't counted lately, but in my rather long block, it's longer than usual, there were 22 short-term rentals on my block. And, right nearby. So there's been a lot of that around. So one of the concerns I have is that specifically. So anyway, so any questions I have about the development itself are not appropriate at this time. Is that correct?
You raise the question and then the
Oh.
applicant will have their opportunity
Uh,
to give us the rebuttal and then we'll do a deliberation.
Hey, this is a question for the developer and folks involved in design. I don't really understand what you guys mean by the elevated common area.
And
You don't have to answer
again,
that,
we'll,
but a concern
again,
I
yeah,
have-
go ahead and raise the
concern
question and
I
then
have
they'll
about
have their
elevated
time
parking areas
to.
That if such a thing were to exist, it needs to fit a Sprinter van. Because this neighborhood full of Sprinter vans, and to your point, okay, you got 22 parking spaces for 11 units.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, okay. that's my
again,
question.
raise the question, we'll have a rebuttal.
Thank you.
But yeah,
So I'll say. Thanks.
okay, thank you very much.
Bonnie, we have one person online with their
Oh.
hand raised too.
Alrighty, and anybody else in person before we go to the online? Okay, go. Okay, yeah, go ahead and then we'll get to the online.
Just,
And just state your name and address, please.
Yeah, Guntram Jordan, 1310 Wasco.
Thank you.
Okay, so I must live right outside of the male zone of 250 feet at 1310. But my principal concern is also about the amount of cars that 11 units will produce that will end up mostly in the street. Because as we all know in Hood River, garages are used for toys and not for cars, okay? And I see this, I've lived at that address for 20 years. I see this on my street in the summertime, just loaded with these Sprinter vans, etc. And extra cars everywhere, nothing in a garage. And now you're gonna dump 11 units on this? So that is one question I have. How are they gonna solve that? How do you fit in, and we don't see any plans here. How do you fit 2 cars underneath 11 units in that tiny little space? 0.34 acres, you said, right? So I think that would be good to see the plans, maybe a little model on a table. And then the other question I have is a more general question. Who actually represents the quality of life of our neighborhood here? That's a big question. Because I mean, that's really gonna impact our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. And looks like we have Patrick Jones online. Patrick, if you can hear us, looks like you're still muted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
A little better?
Perfect. Go ahead. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, great. Now I can't get rid of the all the words, so I can't see you guys too well. Anyway, yeah, I'm Patrick Jones. I live at 1301 Wasco Street, the single family home next door. And I'm all for a generous zone change, but along the line of like I have, which is R2, R3, R2, I guess, to the east, R3 to the west. And I pretty much agree with what everyone else has contributed. But I do know that that intersection, that four-way stops, we're about due for traffic lights in that intersection. I mean, we routinely watch people go through there at 20, 30 miles an hour. And as far as that 13th Street, this is the first year I've known to not have snow and ice on there for quite a while. And at that point, it's sort of a neighborhood family friendly toboggan run, basically. You can't get up and down it with cars. So if that's the egress, of cars coming in off of 13th, I think you got some problems there, but mainly with it just seems like R11 is just very excessive. I mean, 11 units is very excessive. I wrote down a lot and submitted it, but I got caught being out of town and I can't, I'm just shooting from the cuff here, but I just like to see, in keeping with everything else that the presidents that have been set, I don't think we need higher density there. If you need housing, there's some huge projects going west of town out there at Cascade, and there's some really big projects being put in and been approved. I don't think we need any more than the R3s that we have in this neighborhood. And as far as like the parking, I think that's been mentioned. Yeah, just because you got two little tight spots per unit, you got friends and convenience, and I never even thought about the height requirements for when you're carrying bicycles on top and everything. And I don't know, it just seems quite a endeavor, huge project. And plus, I'm the little house that could there in between, so I'll be. I already don't see my west son. Now I won't see the east after this. So, but that's my problem. I understand, but it's just, it's just getting a bit overbuilt right there in two little lots. I don't know why we can't see 6 units at most. That's what I throw my head into that. Like you take that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And do we have one other raised hand online? LK, if you can hear us, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name's Laura K. Lauk, and I live at 1211 Lincoln. And my question is for the developer's representative. I'm sorry I missed your name. You used words where you said that this development would be a compatible development style with existing and surrounding townhouses. And since there aren't any townhouses that have been developed in C2, can I assume that you're likening these to R3 townhouses? So that's my question. And then my comment is the commercial zone makes me extremely uneasy because as soon as we make that zone change away from residential, we could have 11 little mom and pa units selling who knows what. And I think that what's left of our neighborhood needs to stay R3, please. And that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And if there's no further testimony, we can move to,
Did we get everyone online?
all right, so we will move to the applicant's final rebuttal.
Thank you. I'll address a few of the basics off the bat. To reiterate, we have done everything we can to meet the decision criteria, and with that, we have come to a set of conditions of approval, along with our own findings and designs that can meet all of those decision criteria, which would lead us to an approval tonight. I do understand there is some concern potentially about the future use of these townhomes. I do feel the need to say again that ultimately that's outside of our control as an applicant. That comes down to the owner of these future units, that it then is up to them to comply with the appropriate zoning code, development code. Any future use is somehow going to need to be worked out amongst all these different owners. And so we are starting to get a little bit outside of the realm of which I can answer questions and promise or deliver on certain items. I can tell you that setbacks are met, that streets will be improved. And so we'll start to see sidewalks, additional road width, some of those kind of basic amenities. And then to answer some of the questions regarding the building design, I do have the architect with me tonight, Tim. And so as we start to get into some of the conversation around the buildings, I'll let the expert start to speak on that.
Expert is a strong word. Yeah, my name is Tim Fouch, so I'm the design architect on the project. I do hear a lot of the concerns about the building, and I just want to say, to frame where we are in the project, we're just looking at the idea of a zone change. So we haven't gone too far down the road architecturally, other than to reasonably assure ourselves as a team that these units would work, that they'd be beautiful, that they'd be compatible with the neighborhood and things like that. But yes, we did not issue highly dimensioned drawings of the garage sizes, but I will address that one. So I have a few notes here. I'll jump around a bit. They are tall garages because we know Hood River well. I actually was on the design team for the industrial building across the street, and I've done some other townhome projects in the city here that I think have been well received. But tall garages are a big thing. We know that. A lot of the garages we've seen in our other units become snowboard waxing studios and things like that. So we know big garages. We overdid it on parking. We actually could fit an additional unit on this lot if we used the C2 zoning. C2, right? A lot of C's and R's are going around. But we decided to scale back, because if we did that, we were going to need exceptions to maintain parking numbers and things. And we actually felt like it's of high value to the neighborhood to make sure anybody who's living on this lot or on these lots has dual parking spaces. These garages are also extra deep, so they have extra room for all the toys and all those things. That doesn't mean no one's ever going to park on the street, but we are doing our level best to make sure that these are actually very Hood River compatible. And so a little clarification, the boardwalk, it's almost, you can think of it as a little bit of an elevated courtyard. So we thought it was important to not stick all our cars out in a parking lot, so the neighbors are all just looking at cars coming and going all the time, people unloading and loading, and then all the mess that goes with that. All the cars go under the units. It's covered then by this boardwalk, which is where all the social spaces for the units are. And that is elevated up to a pedestrian access from 13th. Thank you. Your vehicles go down off of Wasco, which is the more vehicle-oriented street. But the idea there again is that all the front doors of those units all address the courtyard. So you're not going to be dealing with people like on a catwalk around a building. Sorry, I don't know who I should be addressing here.
Just the microphone is what is going to pick up your voice. So just Yeah.
So a lot of the foot traffic is really gonna be in an internal courtyard type of experience rather than kind of casting out into the neighborhood. The other thing is we are really doing as much as we can to keep the height as low as possible. Obviously, views in the gorge are so important to everybody. We're here for a reason. So we're trying to keep that as low as possible, which is why we have a roof deck, but it's unsheltered. It's really just a place for people to go sit on a chair and enjoy the view, or 4th of July, that kind of thing. And then the building, if we did an R3, you can do an apartment building or something more dense, but you're gonna see something with higher massing. So we'd almost be working against ourselves. We're trying to do something that is townhomes. They have breaks in them, so you get slot views through them. So they feel more residentially scaled rather than a big multifamily project. So we want something that kind of bridges the gap architecturally between multifamily and the residential around us. So we're going for that density. The additional density we get to with C2 allows us to do these more units, which means we can shrink the units down a bit and then make them more affordable. So they may not qualify for affordability from the definition in some of the housing plans, but more units means more affordable because they're going to be smaller units. So we're going to have an offering of 2 and 3 bedroom units, which is kind of single family size, scaled appropriately. That's really a tough spot for a lot of home buyers right now. So we're trying to get something. I know there's a huge house going on next door. We don't want that type of thing. We're trying to get the opposite of that. Something that people can comfortably move into. A little bit about my history as an architect. So I've done a series of projects in Hood River. I do really good, thoughtful work. I am not going to do anything bad in this neighborhood. This is really important to us. I've done work on bridges in Forest Park in Portland, where everybody loves Forest Park, won national award for that. I've won a mayor's award for residential work I've done in Portland. It's going to be a good project. I know it takes a extension of trust, but I hope that we'll get that and we can do something that'll make everybody proud.
And can we see some?
I think.
Hey, excuse me, guys. Sorry, unfortunately, this is not the format for
pretend like I didn't hear my
back and forth,
question.
but
I will say, generally in a process like this, once we have some confidence that this is a feasible project, that with the zoning we're looking at, we would immediately be moving into further architectural development.
Thank you to the applicant. And now we will move to the portion of the hearing where the Planning Commission will deliberate. And if you guys have any questions for the applicant or the staff, now is the time for us to do that.
So one question, maybe for the applicant, maybe for staff. What's the height of the current building? I think it's required in the PUD application. I didn't see it. Maybe I missed it. But that was also a question that came up during the public hearing you guys had, or the meeting.
Yeah, the height of the current building is about 26, 27 feet.
Okay, gotcha. I think that's helpful for the community to hear.
Well, I have a related question. In C2, of how high, what's the highest you can go? C2.
Yeah, currently, industrial is 45 feet.
No, if it's changed to C2.
If it's changed to C2, it's no different.
So it could be 42.
Right. The proposal as measured here is between 20, if you look at the elevations.
Can that ever be changed? I mean, they came with a plan that it was 44 feet. With that, or 42 feet, could that apply? I mean, can they build another?
Yeah. Yeah.
They can go whatever any height they want, even though right now the plan say.
It's 35 feet for residential in C2. So C2 zoning and residential are different. So if they went mixed use in a C2, added a coffee shop, it could then be 45.
Which they can do in C2.
Right. The proposal you see before you is between 22 and 33 feet tall. It's a PUD.
Yeah.
It sets the groundwork and binds the ultimate development. So conditional use in a C2, all residential product requires a planned unit development. The planned unit development as laid out and is before you, page 102 in your packet, and includes elevations, plans, parking. Those are really the parameters that we work around.
And if I can just add one thing to Dustin's comments, ultimately, we do have to be within substantial conformance of the conceptual drawings that got submitted in our packet. And so if we started changing uses around building height significantly, anything that would be really concerning, we would be showing up here again to have that conversation.
Yeah, well, we've seen that not too long ago, so I was just curious.
That tracks for you, Dustin.
Yeah, the PUD really sets the boundaries. Any construction drawings that come out of it has to be consistent with the PUD and these findings. Any modifications from a PUD would then, if it were to height or number of units or anything that's considered a major modification, which is a term of art in your code, they would return here and say, this is our PUD. You've heard it. Here's our modifications. It would be evaluated before the PC.
Okay, parking was my main concern, and it seems to be a concern of a lot of people that wrote in and also testified. I've done 12 PUDs in this town over the course of my career, and I had varying luck with parking, and I found that garages, people don't use them. They just don't use them, even a 2-car garage. And especially if there's going to be 2 cars for every dwelling. I actually took your plans and tried to redo them to look if there was some way to do some cluster parking on site, but there's just no way to get that many units there. It's impossible. And you've probably seen that too. You're going to have a dozen cars on the street all the time for people living in those dwellings. And I don't think there's anything to be done about it. I don't know if that's a deal breaker. I don't think that's anything to do with us. It's just the way it is. And plus, I don't think there's any way you can pull into those garages properly. There's not enough room. Trying to be like a 2 or 3 point turn to try to get into a garage with that alley you've got. I mean, I've done it a lot, and I can see that it's just not going to work. It's too bad you can't find a way to have at least 10 parking spots where people can park and walk into their units from there. But they're going to be on the street, and we can't say you can't do that because everything's allowed. But that's just a tough one. I don't know. I'm just bringing that up. I don't have a solution to it or anything. Just everyone that's concerned about parking is right. They should be concerned.
Thank you.
Ultimately, it is something that is a little bit out of our control. As the applicant, we meet the standard. We provide the required parking. We look to improve the width of the street to ease some of that conflict. I have heard across jurisdictions that how people use the garage is becoming more of a problem, but ultimately we don't have the code that really provides us a good way of controlling that, especially given that's something that how that gets used is up to the owner of that unit. And so we hear the concerns, we understand the concerns, we've done what we can to alleviate that. But ultimately there's only so much we can do at this time.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to change it. I'm just bringing it up and just kind of verifying everyone's concerns and acknowledging them. And I don't have, I just like to see some way to have some cluster parking inside the unit, the development. And I think you haven't got enough room to make those garages work that well.
Yeah.
Backing out, everything is going to be an issue. But again, you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's with this. I see that. So
I got
a staff question.
I was gonna help out, Bill, I'll take it in 1 second. Mike, and for the audience and for the record, on page 116, they have the site plan included, which has the internal drive width. It's just short of 20 feet in width for the drive, which is as wide as our alley standard. So although it's tight, it's tucked between 2 buildings. There is it does match up with the dimensions that we would have for a public alley. So tight, it's an urbanized site, but I wouldn't consider it an unreasonable dimension when it matches up with an alley width. And then per parking, required by code shown in the PUD, 2 units per each of these dwelling units off street is provided.
Bill, did you have some
Yeah, I got two questions. Hey, Dustin or Jacob, could you walk us through the density calculation for this property, the unit number of units if it were zoned R3, and apply the 30% bonus density?
Essentially R3, its flat density is 8 at this site. 5,000 for the first 2 units, 1,500 thereafter. For current proposal, it's shown at 11, with no bonus prevent, density allotted for 16 units or affordability.
So the question I'm asking is, if we zone, like, for me, I think this is a great project. I like it. It's in the right spot. It's the right size. I have a problem with the zone change, and I don't think the findings are accurate. I think they're not, I don't think the findings are accurate. So what the question I'm trying to ask, there's two questions, is one, if the applicant were to, if we were to change this to R3 and the applicant wanted to keep a very similar type of project, can he get a 30% bonus density with architectural features? And what would the number of units be?
I don't have that top of my head, and it's not proposed in the application packet.
Is there ability to adjust the base density under Senate Bill 1537?
I don't believe there's a base density provision for 1537. There's some measurable standards, especially in C2.
Measurable standards in C2. I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Height, setback, 10% open space. There are some of those standards.
In 1537?
Yep, but that is also not a part of this application. They have not sought a variance or adjustment.
Yep. I'm trying to figure out how we approve this project, but not switch it to C2, because I think it's, one, not justified based upon the data from the economic opportunities analysis or the housing needs analysis. It's not a multifamily project. It's a single family residential project. And it's a slippery slope. We changed this to R2, then we're gonna change another lot to R2 to justify it under the housing need. And I think we should get there some other way. I like the project.
Bill, you said R2. Did you mean C2?
I mean R3.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the fact that it could be, we changed this to C2 and then 2 years down the road, it's a car wash, even if we tried to impose some density calculation. And if we're going to be using this as the needed housing as a justification, the fact that these could easily be all short-term rentals, it's concerning, because then it will not be provided needed housing.
Yeah, I too share that concern with the C2 zoning, that even if we do get those dwelling units, that they inevitably become their highest and best use financially, which would be short-term rental. And if we're able to get to this through an R type zoning, then that I think that would be the ideal situation, and it makes we don't have to worry about conditions that likely we can apply in terms of protection from short-term rentals. Yeah, Commissioner Lytle, do you have anything?
Yeah, so I've got a poor connection, but I agree with you guys that going into C zoning is a slippery slope, and I'm a little uncomfortable with it. I'd feel a lot better if this was an R3. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this prior, but I agree with that. I think this should and can be rezoned, but I don't think C2 is the right classification for it. I'd rather see an R3.
So just for point of clarification, to ask the commission in this application, you are the decision body on the PUD itself. The zone change comes before city council. So we're looking for a decision on the PUD. Any of that is pending a zone change. We'd be asking planning commission to make a recommendation to city council when they contemplate their zone change. So in terms of your role, you have a conditional use approval standard and a recommendation role by way of zone change.
So on the PUD, we're assessing this as if it were a C2
That's correct.
zone already. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
You
That- I
just
think-
so you know,
I think
you cannot approve a zone change.
Right.
You're only
We
recommending.
would give recommendation to city council on the zone change. Today, we are here to deliberate the file for the PUD. So not the zone change. We give recommendation to city council. So with that framing, I think the PUD does meet all the standards that we would require for a PUD as if it was a C2. However, for me, the recommendation would be to not do the zone change to C2. And since we are to make a decision based on the standards set before us, and it should be an unbiased decision. Yeah, I mean that's the way that I would frame my vote. And so just with that being said, if there's any more comment around this, or if there's a motion, if there is no more comments, yeah, I welcome that from the commission.
Commissioner, we had one hand up raised from the public. We're really only taking procedural questions and the time for testimony is over. So I just want to make sure if we have a procedural question out there that we have it addressed.
Yeah, can we see what the hand raise was? Is that from Patrick Jones? And is that just, I think he was having a hard time.
Yes, I'm not sure I understand with this procedural business. So you've heard all the testimony times been used, right?
Correct.
Yeah, unless there was a procedural error where we had the testimony time.
I got you. No, I guess I think I'm good. I just was amazed at the difference of how the study didn't have exact figures on like elevation. At first it was 23, 24 feet, but it could go to 45. That's very confusing.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. I think at this moment in time and where we're at with the proceeding, we'll move forward with the planning commission deliberation. And if there is a motion that anybody would like to bring forth. Did you have a procedural? Sure. Oh. And then there's a button there to press. Yeah, that's perfect.
Steve Lambert. Okay, so the procedural question is, you folks are voting on if a C2 rezoning, correct? And then you're gonna prove it to the.
No, we will be.
You're voting.
We're voting on the PUD, and then we will also give a recommendation. So if we were to approve the PUD, we would also give a recommendation for the zoning change. So it's two things together.
Yeah, you will vote on a recommendation, but you will not approve that recommendation.
Right. That's to city council.
The recommendation would be to potentially change the zoning to city council to.
Yeah, so city council holds that power and we would just only give a recommendation.
And then we could appeal to the city council as well. Or no?
Correct.
Okay.
And there'd be a hearing.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're not going to make any recommendation around an R3 zoning. We're just we're going to make a recommendation around the zoning, the rezone request that's been made. That's it. Right? We don't.
Correct. Your recommendation is based on the proposal. Any additional commentary, however, is welcome. And, in terms of findings, you want to produce that for them to hear.
Okay, fair enough. I do just have a staff report question, comment detail that I wanted to bring up. I don't think it doesn't change the nature of this application, and I'm not really sure where to put this, but I just want to put it out there mostly for the commission and maybe for staff, just to kind of gain alignment on it. And it's our friend surrounding area as it relates to compatibility. So if looking at page 11 of the staff report, if commissioners can head there, if possible. There's just some language in here that staff wrote. I guess my first question is for staff, Jacob, if you wrote this, where is this boilerplate language? Did this around the surrounding area definition? Or where does this come from?
Yeah, this is pretty typical. I think some of the key terms that are in here, it talks about a minimum. The notice doesn't drop below the noticing area, 250 feet. However, there are certain adjustments based on, let me summarize, time, place, manner, circumstances that may allow that to be adjusted.
Okay.
Where does
that come from?
That's a typical, that's what we use as
code.
correct. That's our typical.
Like convention or standard you guys apply.
Correct.
Okay.
It's, I would consider it more flexible, allowing some change based on circumstance. And I think we'll continue to use that. It's also backed by some court law and case law. Wilbur, I think it's Wilbur v. Douglas County. That's my shortened version of it. That basically says you cannot just rest on notice area as the static or something arbitrary. That really supports if something else changes this bigger project, we would want to expand that. And it definitely gives us notice, and we could incorporate this, that we can't just use the notice area as our baseline.
Yeah.
And just because it's a notice area doesn't mean it's the surrounding area. The court would resist that.
Yeah, I think it just creates a really unclear target. And so I'm not really a fan of this definition, and that it's really not, it says in some cases we can use a large portion of the city. And in our prior judgment, we decided we weren't going to use a large portion of the city. And so I think we need to just get alignment on this, maybe, and I'm not sure if commission can ask for different language to be in staff reports, or if this is purely a staff decision.
Yeah, I think this is the staff's report to you.
Okay.
Every time you see this, if you want to, we may come with something specific saying this is what we think it is. But certainly you have, I would suggest in whatever circumstance comes before you'd say, we think this is the right area because.
Yeah.
And so you have the opportunity to either affirm it or modify it when it comes to your hand, saying this is the general area that we should be contemplating.
So I think so I think this is accurate, that in this case, it did consider the surrounding area to be the 250 feet of the subject site. I would then don't explain what we're not using, just omit that and just say this is what we are applying. That would be my preference, just so that we don't add questions about why some other distance wasn't applied. So that's my only comment on that. And then just kind of going forward, I'm not sure if it matters in this case, but yeah. Sorry to have to talk about surrounding area again.
Yeah, I get my comment on is the surrounding area is 250 is too small generally in all cases. So I don't necessarily agree.
Great. This has been
Yeah.
lively.
So how about
Go ahead, Bill.
Why don't I make we got two things to vote on here. Why don't I make a motion that the issue is I'm not in agreement with certain findings in the staff report. And those findings are related to the zone change. So I guess staff, how do you recommend we move forward? Can we agree to, can we make a motion or vote on the staff report and the associated findings except for the zone change?
Yeah, you have actually two actions here. One of them is a vote on the PUD and the conditional use approval. The second is the vote on you can absolutely break them into two. if you have alternative findings that you suggest for the C2 aspect, we'd throw them in there. But I think taking 2 votes is good.
And that's my understanding as well.
One more question. So assuming we approve the PUD with the associated findings, and then city council goes and approves the zone change, there's not really, I guess there could be conditions associated with the zone change specifically. I guess that's a question.
That's correct.
Or are we gonna have to get all the conditions we want into this right now?
No, you, importing conditions is okay, but, if they're insufficient conditions or terms, city council could have their own installed. So you don't have to have them all in now. They're only recommendations.
Yeah, so
Okay.
our conditions on the zoning change, again, would only be a recommendation to the city council.
Bill, can you provide some, just maybe one example of what you're talking about? Just so we can-
Well, I need to get to the page. It's related to justification. So I was on the Economic Opportunities Analysis Committee. I was on the Housing Needs Analysis Committee, and very specifically, there was no discussion that we were going to take industrial lands and rezone them to C2 to provide additional housing. What we determined was that we had an excess of C2 lands and we had a shortage of R3 lands, and that we should be doing R3 in our we should be doing multifamily projects in our C2 zone. That's what was that's the summary of those documents. And that's not what these documents are saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but what section are you, I mean, I think that the document is saying we don't need this as industrial. I'm not sure.
Well, the justification, let me get to the page. If we get to
Bill, go to page 40.
Is it 40? Yeah. Yeah. I guess yeah, I mean, it's basically Dustin's got it. It's under goal 10. It's housing needs analysis. Without residential development C2 zone, we'd have a deficit of land for multifamily development. Like, I agree with that statement because that is accurate, but that doesn't, in my mind, this is not a multifamily project. It's attached single family, which there's a very specific difference in our zoning ordinance with related to that. So I don't feel like this is an appropriate justification for goal 10. So I don't think these findings support the justification for a rezone.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I kind of made this statement earlier that I think the housing needs analysis was talking about land already zoned as C2. So I think
That's exactly what I was considering, because we did an inventory of it and we had the economic opportunities analysis. We had a surplus of C2 land and we had a shortage of R3. So the justification was, hey, you can make up for an R3. And it was, as Justin said earlier, it wasn't just housing, it was multifamily housing. Specifically that we were supposed to be doing in R3 and in C2, and this is not multifamily, and it's a rezone, not existing C2. So that's the rub where I don't agree with the findings.
I think we could add that with the zone, recommendation as a detail.
Yeah, I think, I guess what we should do is vote on the PUD. I mean, that seems like that would be one thing to do. So I could make a motion that we approve the planned unit development, file number 2025-32, with the staff report as submitted, except for the zone change component of it.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Yes.
Zach,
Yes, I'm in favor.
and I am also in favor, so that motion passes unanimously. And our second action here is for a recommendation to the city council. I would entertain a motion for that.
I think we really need to get some real clear communication to council for them to consider. So I think we should maybe kind of outline what those points are, and maybe we could look to staff to take record of this.
Mhm.
And then once we have some agreement upon what the components of our recommendation and this information we want to communicate to council, once we get an agreement on what that is, then maybe we can make a motion.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Do we have anything that you guys want to parse out here, something that you'd like to call out in our recommendation to city council?
The first thing I got a few things. One is that I think this is a precedent-setting activity. What's to say we don't take some other random spot and rezone it to C2 under the justification of housing, only to have that housing never get built. And so that's, I guess, one bullet point I would like to communicate to council.
Yeah,
Does everybody agree with that one?
Yeah, I agree with that, Bill. I think the idea behind the zone change in an ideal situation, correct. You know, we do want as much housing, but I don't think the C2 appropriately protects from kind of one of the downfalls that we've been trying to protect from, which is the short-term housing. Yeah, taking over, more of a long-term housing situation. So yeah, I agree with that. Any other commissioners?
And I think also other future commercial use. I think I would add that on too.
I agree. Yeah.
If I get four of you to say you're on board with that, I can kind of
Yeah.
log these and inventory them. I don't want to go through them and then have them drop off. So
No, that was my concern from the get-go was improper use or legal use, but not exactly what the spirit of the housing needs analysis was.
okay, so precedent setting,
Yeah.
short-term rental, and concern about allowing kind of those unforeseen permitted uses.
Yeah, I think also just clearly inconsistent with surrounding zoning. I mean, it creates an island of C2, not near any other C2. And so I think if we buy this, interface point, that there should be this interface of higher density between R and I, then that should be a strategy. We should articulate that strategy and we should then implement that strategy. I don't think we should implement that strategy with one development. I think we need to buy into that as a city if we're going to.
Yeah.
We're going to do it.
I don't necessarily take issue with the interface idea of it. However, I think based on our needs, I think we were looking more for long-term dwelling units, not potential short-term rental units.
Yeah, I think the zoning between the different areas, this is a little less harsh. It's more of a gentle transition from residential to instead of right to C2. I agree. But I'm also, as a developer, can tell you losing 3 houses is a huge hit. And what they would say, and what I would say, if I were with them, was like, well, that means all the houses are going to cost another $150,000 a piece or $200,000 a piece more. It makes losing one house makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Losing 3 is significant.
Right.
But I'm in agreement with everything we're saying. I'm just giving them a bone, basically.
No, yeah, I think we're considering, and I agree with you, Mike, with my real estate background as well, you see what that does as a developer to the cost per unit, so.
Yeah.
Zach, did you have any input on this?
No, I don't have anything on that.
Okay, well, I mean,
So we have one, I'd like the staff to go through, if we're gonna be communicating stuff at council, we've got the precedent setting concern that we're just gonna basically go around and spot zone C2 under the justification of housing. Correct? That's
Yeah,
one.
I have your precedent concern, the fact that if this is left vacant, it can leave the opportunity for unforeseen uses or commercial uses that aren't residential, and the concern of the STR proliferation.
Would that be
That-
exclusively from industrial or from, this gonna be, like, we're gonna go into any kind of zoning change? Could be a slippery slope, or is this specifically industrial to C2?
I think specifically this proposal.
Yeah, okay.
I guess the place in the event, I think the findings are just an error. Like I think you could, if you look at the zone change.
did we lose you, Bill?
Sorry. Yep. So I want to come back to the findings error because I think we should figure that out and correct it. If I go under the approval criteria, I'm on page 42. Number 2 is there's a public need for the change, and this identified need will be served by changing the zone or plans designation for the subject properties. Like that's an easy thing to do. We've got the housing needs analysis. We can justify that, basically all types of houses are needed housing in the state of Oregon. And I think like that criteria there is really easily met. Number 2. I think we really muddy the water when we start pulling in the justification of multifamily in the C2 zone. Like that criteria. So I think I'm looking at I don't really know that I feel like pages 42, 43, 44 and 45, like that's the section of the findings where I'm just kind of like I think we need to be very careful there and concise and precise that we're really using only needed housing and we're not using the multifamily in C2 justification. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I think if you were to look at this from a I to R3, you would use the same justification,
Yes.
right?
Yep. Yep. And then I guess if we're going to be communicating stuff to council, and I guess this is to the applicant, I think there are possibly other mechanisms under the city code and the state code where they could get to the density that they want under R3. It would be a different process. I mean, I think they could do, I haven't gone through the analysis, but it seems like under 1537, you can get a bonus density of 20%. Under the PUD ordinance, you can get a bonus density of 30%. So I think we could have a very similar project in the R3 zone. And I think, I mean, I'll just communicate that to, I guess, council, and it's not a founded opinion because I haven't gone through it, but I think we could communicate that to the applicant and to council.
Staff, does that track with you guys? Bill's are Oh, microphone, sorry.
Yeah, I'm hearing it. However, that's not the application that we're looking to justify. So.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
We can still communicate it though.
just to inform a recommendation.
So I think in summary, without getting into all the numbers, is it planning commission at large thinks they could get there with a residential zone?
Well, Bill does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Bill's point and what Dustin is, I think what he's trying to say is that we are here to talk about the application as it's set forth to us.
Yes.
And so then the recommendation, if I'm trying to kind of distill it down here, would be that we don't think that the C2 is justified because of potential uses in the future. And additionally, to help the applicant, because we do want applicants to develop in the city of Hood River, I think what we're asking is if an R3 zoning could come out with a very similar project. Does that sound accurate to your recommendations, Bill?
Yes.
Yeah, I think point being, it doesn't justify, sorry, the housing needs analysis does not justify this rezone to a C2. I think that, in my mind, seems clear. The housing needs analysis does justify this land being used for housing.
I would agree.
Yeah. So with that being said, it seems like we're coming to a pretty good agreement here on what recommendation we want to make to city council. So would we do a motion for this, or is this just something that Dustin, you guys would distill or put into writing for us?
We'll put it in writing, but I can get the general points, being back to precedent setting, concern about vacancy, and the opportunity for unforeseen uses in the C2 zone, those commercial that wouldn't move the needle on your H&A proliferation of short-term rentals, concern that the justification is not there for a C2 zone under the H&A, and that the applicant could get there with an R3 designation. Get there meaning get to an approved development of equal density.
I mean, that's not, I think we're not voting, I mean, that's not the application, so I think I would be concerned in.
Commentary in your findings of your non-C2 recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would want a motion to set this. As chair, I'm not allowed to motion. Correct. Do we have a motion to recommend?
Yeah, so I can have a go at it.
Thank you.
I guess I would recommend that we, sorry, I'll make a motion to recommend to council to not approve the C2 rezone. With the following justification for our recommendation included, that it's not consistent with the surrounding area, that we have that the housing needs analysis does not justify this being rezoned to C2, that Dustin is going to remind me of the other ones. Precedent setting, that this could be precedent setting, and we don't want that to be the case. And unforeseen uses, both straightforward commercial and also potentially short-term rental of the proliferation of STRs.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Unless there's no more discussion.
Hold on a sec.
Yes.
Let's have a discussion on the motion. Let's amend the motion, or I would suggest that we can amend a motion. That I guess the only thing that I would add is, in the event that council is going to consider approving this, that they should impose additional conditions to satisfy our concerns. That would be a part of our recommendation.
I think if the motion's been made and seconded, we have to vote and then make a new motion. Is that correct?
That's my question.
In order to amend the motion, we would have to have both the one who motioned and the second allow for reconsideration.
Okay.
So it's not super formal, but if you both agree, you can back out and then have that amendment.
Okay, Bill, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we stated our case pretty clearly, or our thinking. My concern is that council hears what we had to say and they're like, oh, let's just approve this. In the event that they approve it, I would like to really make sure that goes back to my question of Dustin earlier. They do have the ability to insert additional findings at that point. So I think we should highlight for council, if they're going to approve it, that they have the ability to add additional findings that could address a variety of different concerns. And I guess that specifically could be related to, the precluded from doing short-term rentals on the site, that they were guaranteed to do a minimum number of housing units under any development scenario.
But those sounded like conditions, not findings.
Yes.
That they could
Yes.
apply conditions, not findings.
Yes, yeah, correct. Yep.
Yeah,
So I like your motion. I would just suggest we amend it if we choose not to.
I'm okay amending it with, we would make the recommendation to council to include conditions that would mitigate any of these concerns that we have.
In the event they're going to approve it, yes.
Okay, so
We're recommending that they don't approve it, but in the event that they do approve it, we're suggesting that they at least should heavily condition it.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you guys are both okay with backing out of the initial motion. So let's clean it up with one final motion, and then we'll look for a second. Does that sound okay?
I think we can amend as long as who seconded? You seconded? Are you okay with the amended motion?
Long as you agree to the amendment, we can move forward with.
All right.
Okay,
We have a second.
so it is seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
And I also am in favor. So this recommendation passes unanimously as well.
That motion is approved. You have a decision on the PUD and a recommendation on the zone request. That will go before council at a sub hearing. We'll advertise that time and date certain. And then we will render this decision in writing. We'll ask you to sign it. That will start that process. So
Okay. So if nothing else, I will.
Yeah, one more thing, outside the hearing, we will be back with the code update. Just to keep your eyes and ears open, a consolidated code update will be back to you, board commission. That's all.
All right. This has been great. I will adjourn today's meeting at 7:18. Thank you, everyone.